Ele tomou o cálice em suas mãos, deu graças novamente, deu aos seus discípulos, dizendo: Tomai todos e bebei. Este é o cálice do meu sangue, o sangue da nova e eterna aliança, que será derramado por vós e por todos, para a remissão dos pecados. Fazei isto em memória de mim.
What would happen if a small winged messenger decided to participate in the celebration in a very particular way, prompting the priest to react in a way that left everyone speechless? A story of faith, surprise, and a revelation about God's simplicity that you could never have imagined. Don't miss a second of this narrative that will touch your heart and rekindle your faith in a new way. Before we dive deeper into this inspiration, I invite you to use the comment section right now and write the names of those special people, friends, family, loved ones, who are in urgent need of prayer. We will include all these names in our main rosary prayer, here in our faith community. It was a Sunday morning like so many others, in the modest church of a small community, where the shy golden rays of sunlight peeked through the cracks in the stained glass windows, coloring the interior with soft, reverent tones. The pews, packed with the faithful, awaited the beginning of the service with their hearts in prayer, and an almost palpable silence filled the air, interrupted only by the occasional murmur of a child or the discreet sound of the pages of a missal. The priest, a figure known and loved for his profound wisdom and good humor, was already in the sacristy, preparing for the rite, the vestments carefully arranged on the table, and the chalice containing the wine, not yet consecrated, glowing softly, awaiting its moment. There was a special peace in that place, a sense that everything was in its rightful and sacred place, ready for the encounter with the divine V. Suddenly, as if appearing out of nowhere, a vibrantly colored parakeet, an emerald green mixed with a deep yellow, entered the main nave through a side door that had been left ajar. Its flight was light, swift, and seemingly unassuming, and at first, many didn't even notice its presence, mistaking it for a momentary illusion of light or dust dancing in the air. It didn't fly in panic, nor did it make a fuss. On the contrary, its trajectory seemed purposeful, almost as if the little bird knew exactly where it was going. The few who spotted it tried, with discreet gestures and curious glances, to follow its movements, wondering where it had come from and, more importantly, where it was heading with such determination in the heart of the church, such an unusual environment for a wild animal. With surprising dexterity and an almost supernatural silence for such a small and seemingly fragile being, the parakeet traced its path through the aisles of the church, hovering briefly over the baptismal font, then over the flower arrangements on the altar, and finally, as if guided by an invisible force, it vanished from the sight of the faithful. He made an elegant turn and discreetly disappeared through the sacristy door, the restricted area where the priest and his assistants prepared for the most solemn moments of the Massachusetts. Curiosity and amazement grew among the few who had noticed his peculiar journey, but no one dared interrupt the sacredness of that moment before the liturgy, letting the small creature follow its own enigmatic path, like a secret revealed only to the most attentive eyes. Minutes later, one of the sacristans, a gentleman with a calm expression and a soft voice, entered the sacristy to call the priest to the altar. His face, usually serene, was filled with a mixture of perplexity and a restrained smile. There was the parakeet, without the slightest embarrassment or fear, perched on the edge of the chalice that held the unconsecrated wine, its beak dipped in the liquid and sipping calmly, as if at its own private fountain in a secret garden. The wine, which would become the blood of Christ for the faithful, was being shared, in that singular moment, with such a small and innocent creature, in an act of spontaneous and unexpected sharing, a silent prelude to the most sacred of communions. At first, the sacristan didn't know how to react, but before he could even whisper a word or make a move to chase away the unusual visitor, the priest appeared, ready to go to the altar. His gaze, initially filled with confusion, lingered on the scene, the parakeet and the chalice. There was no loud shock, no religious indignation at the desecration of the sacred object or liquid. Instead, what followed was one of the most incredible and moving reactions the sacristan and the few present in the sacristy had ever witnessed in the Reverend's entire pastoral life. The priest didn't push him away, didn't complain, or show any irritation. He simply stood, watching the parakeet drink the wine, and his face lit up with a gentle smile, a look of profound tenderness, and an understanding that went far beyond the obvious, almost as if the small animal were an honored guest at an invisible banquet. With the delicacy of one who understands a mystery, the priest merely inclined his head slightly, his eyes fixed on the parakeet. Instead of disturbing the moment, he made a gentle gesture with his hand, as if inviting the bird to continue. In that silence, full of meaning, he uttered not a single word of rebuke, nor did he express concern about the sacrilege that others might see. On the contrary, his countenance radiated profound acceptance, a silent lesson on the simplicity and universality of love and divine providence. It was as if the bird, drinking the wine destined for the Lord, was, in its own innocent and spontaneous way, participating in the same communion, demonstrating that God's grace and presence can manifest in ways that defy all our human expectations and rituals, touching even the smallest of creatures. When the parakeet, finally sated, flew out of the sacristy with the same discretion with which it had entered, the priest turned to the sacristan, and his smile widened. In a calm and serene tone of voice, he simply said, "Just look." The Creator reminds us, in subtle and surprising ways, that his presence and his generosity are not limited to our churches and rituals. Even the smallest of his creatures sought the source of life at our altar. May this be a reminder that we never close our hearts or the doors of our faith to the unexpected and the simple, for it is in these details that the divine often whispers the most beautiful truths. That day, Mass took on a different flavor, permeated by a silent miracle that transformed the hearts of all present in the sacristy. A parakeet and a glass of wine, redefining the sacred and access to grace for all. From that day on, the story of the priest and the parakeet spread, becoming a small local legend, a living testament to the fact that faith sometimes reveals itself in events more curious and unassuming than we could imagine, and that God's presence manifests itself where we least expect it, even in a thirsty little bird in a church sacristy. This story reminds us that, just as the little parakeet found a source of life where it was least expected, we too are invited to seek God's presence in every moment of our daily lives. How often, trapped in our routines, hurried prayers, and hearts filled with resentment, do we close our eyes to the small wonders and great lessons that the divine offers us? It is essential to practice forgiveness daily, cultivate peace in our hearts, pray without ceasing for ourselves and those we love, and open our hearts to constant conversion, so that our faith may be alive and growing. We need to learn to see God's greatness in simplicity, in the joy of a good morning, in the smile of a friend, and have unshakable faith that He provides and guides us, even when answers seem delayed. Therefore, I invite you once again to leave in the comments the names of all the people you know who need prayer, divine intervention, a word of comfort, or a miracle in their lives. Let's include them in our main prayer with the Rosary, joining our voices in one prayer, as a community of faith. What did this curious story teach you? Have you ever witnessed something similar that made you see faith in a new way? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Your interaction is very important to us. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our videos that bring curiosities, faith, and inspiration for your day. May God's peace be with you.